Da Vinci's cursed treasure revealed, a sinister haunting exposed in 12 haunted hours. Mia's heart raced as she stared at the mansion looming before her like a giant watching over its prey. It was nothing like the cozy home she'd envisioned when she heard about her inheritance. Peeling paint and broken shutters twisted the once grand structure into something eerie. A chill crept into her bones, borrowing warmth and filling her with dread. As she and her 15-year-old son Dylan stepped onto the overgrown path, she could swear the air shivered with whispers of forgotten tragedies. "Mom, it feels wrong here," Dylan murmured, the weight of apprehension sinking into his young shoulders. "Come on, we're here for a fresh start," she replied, trying to sound brave, masking her own growing fear. But the moment they stepped inside, the scent of mildew wrapped around them like a thick, suffocating blanket. Faded photographs hung crooked on the walls, their subjects long lost to time. As Mia flicked on the dusty chandelier, the lights sputtered and flickered, a heartbeat trembling in the encroaching shadows. Eager to shake off the unease, Mia explored the labyrinth of rooms, each one filled with dusty relics, cobwebs, and the suffocating atmosphere of despair. It was as if the house itself was watching them, waiting for something, anything. Then, she turned the corner only to find Dylan standing stock still, pale and trembling at the base of the grand staircase. I heard a woman crying," he stammered, his eyes wide with fear, reflecting the dim light. "She sounded so sad." "Just your imagination," Mia said, a bit too firmly. But as the heavy air pressed against her, she couldn't shake the feeling that the house echoed with sorrow. Later, darkness enveloped them, creeping into corners and stirring an invisible threat. She picked up her phone to call the local sheriff, her hands trembling, fingers slippery with sweat. This isn't an episode of Ghost Hunters," he replied with a chuckle after she described the unsettling phenomena. His condescension bit deep. "Are you sure you and your boy are doing okay?" Something roiled in her gut. What if this was all a ruse? Menacing eyes behind warm smiles? As night deepened, shadows shifted and twisted across the walls, the air thick with phantom whispers. Were they real or just a cruel manifestation of her fears? In the distance, she suddenly heard the unmistakable sound of furniture scraping across the wooden floor. "Mom! Did you hear that?" Dylan's voice shook, and Mia's blood ran cold. "Let's get out of here," she said, but the door slammed shut, sealing them inside. A laugh echoed from nowhere, a cruel mockery of her attempt to start fresh. "Mom, the treasure," Dylan gasped as a chilling thought struck him like a bolt. "What if it's cursed?" "Stop. Don't say that," she retorted, but the dread began to seep in. Slipping away, she dove into dust-caked journals and artifacts, searching for answers, uncovering stories of tragedy, greed, and loss. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated from the basement, the sound reverberating through the floorboards. The walls shuddered, shadows warping around them as voices whispered in urgent tones, demanding attention. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The weight of the moment pressed upon them heavily as they stood paralyzed. The mansion had marked them, they could feel its eyes watching, waiting. The faint cries of the woman echoed again, tormenting their minds. In the ticking silence that surrounded them, Mia knew they had to escape this place. But the mansion wasn't ready to let them go. Dylan's breath hitched, eyes wide as he peered into the darkened hallway, the shadows swirling like angry spirits. The air grew electric, weighted with something unspeakable. "Mom! I think we're in their way," he whispered, fear cracking his voice as the floor creaked ominously, reverberating an invitation that felt far too sinister to deny. But as they turned, the only question echoing in the haunted halls was, what awaited them in that darkened basement, and would they be able to escape the clutches of the mansion before it claimed them as its latest victims? Dylan's terrified gaze pinned Mia in place, her heart hammering violently against her ribcage. She could almost feel the walls breathing around them, pulsing with the ominous energy of the house. With the basement door looming ahead, an unseen weight pressed down upon her shoulders, a cacophony of silent screams desperately clawing for attention. "Mom, we have to leave." Dylan's voice was a thin thread of urgency, breaking the suffocating silence. But Mia was frozen. The idea of moving, of leaving this house, felt like an act of betrayal to whatever spirit lingered within these walls. As if in response to their collective fear, a low rumble echoed through the hall, like the moaning of a giant awakened from its sleep. The floorboards creaked ominously beneath them, as though the house itself was trying to warn them, begging them to understand. "Let us just check the basement," she managed, the words escaping her lips before she could fully comprehend the madness of her suggestion. A part of her hoped that maybe, just maybe, they'd find a clue. Something that would make sense of all the sorrow that surrounded them. "Mom, please." "I don't want to." Dylan pleaded, his voice rising in pitch, panic dripping from every syllable. Before she could respond, the door to the basement creaked open slowly, as if invited by some unseen hand. A cold breeze whipped up from the stairs below, carrying with it the overpowering stench of dirt and decay. It twisted around Mia, wrapping her in a cocoon of dread. "Stay close," she ordered, her voice wavering as she grasped Dylan's hand tightly. They descended, one shaky step at a time, the darkness swallowing them whole. At the bottom of the stairs, the air thickened, turning their breath into clouds of mist. The basement was larger than she expected, the shadows casting shapes that danced along the walls. Old crates lay scattered, the contents long spoiled by time, dusty relics of a life once lived. Just then, a crash echoed from the far corner, sending both of them jumping, hearts pounding like war drums. "What was that?" Dylan gasped, clutching her arm. I don't know." "Let us go." She turned towards the stairs, but the tension in her chest reined her in. Something compelled her to investigate. "Look." Dylan pointed toward an old trunk partially hidden beneath a pile of tattered cloth. It was worn, its metal corners rusted, yet it seemed to beckon her. The locks were old and dusty, but not so worn as to be incapable of opening. "What if it's just junk?" she whispered, not fully believing her own words. Dylan's eyes widened. "Or maybe it's the treasure," he said, his voice a mix of eagerness and dread. Mia took a deep breath, the scent of the damp air prickling her senses. With trembling fingers, she undid the rusty latch. The trunk creaked open, revealing an assortment of trinkets and old scrolls, dusty and forgotten. But the moment she touched one of the scrolls, the temperature in the room plummeted. A low hiss filled the air, a voice whispering in her ear, sharp and insistent, "Leave while you still can, Mom. Run." Dylan screamed, his eyes wide with terror as shadows flared around them, coiling like dark serpents. The trunk vibrated as if alive, the items inside rattling frantically. Mia staggered back, everything felt wrong. The tears streaming down Dylan's cheeks mirrored her own internal panic. Before she could utter a word, darkness rushed toward them, washing over like a tide. The shadows surged, trapping them, wrapping around their limbs like icy chains. "We have to get out," Mia shouted, panic setting in as she and Dylan struggled against the grasping darkness. But the basement door slammed shut, a thunderous finality echoing in her ears. As the shadows closed in, the chilling whispers became clear, a chaos of panicked souls intertwined, an urgent message pleading for release. "Mom. What do we do?" Dylan's voice quivered, pulling at her heart, his vulnerability overwhelming. Mia's mind raced, and amidst the fear, clarity cut through like a knife, a horrifying realization that the answers she sought lay within. These cursed treasures. But exploring them could cost them everything. Desperation clawed at her, and she faced the looming shadows. Would uncovering the truth free them or seal their fates? With one last breath, she steeled herself, knowing that the fight for their lives was just beginning. What horrifying truths lay buried in the darkness, and would they emerge unscathed, or become the next victims tethered to the ever-hungry mansion? The shadows tightened around Mia and Dylan, curling like smoke, eager to consume them. She fought against the grasping darkness, feeling Dylan's small hands slip in her sweat-slick grip. Panic clawed at her throat. They were out of options, trapped in the belly of a beast that seemed more alive than inert. "Mom!" Dylan's voice was a strangled cry, fear gaining ground with every moment. She turned to see his wide eyes glinting in the dim light, reflecting the chaos around them. The trunk vibrated ominously, a heartbeat of its own pulsing wildly, as if it were some ancient heart ready to unleash its secrets. "Stay close. We have to find a way out," Mia shouted, but as she turned, a thick tendril of shadow shot toward them, encircling her ankles. The coldness seeped in, making her freeze, and in that moment of vulnerability, a low rumbling laugh echoed through the basement, chilling her to her core. Mia felt the floor beneath them shift, almost tilting toward the trunk. "No," she whispered, not wanting to believe. This was more than just a place of sorrow. It was a dungeon of despair, and they were its captives. She charged toward the trunk, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm. She had to confront the evil that stirred the air, her impulse stronger than her terror. "No more running," she growled, pulling open the trunk wider, revealing scrolls that flared with an eerie light. "Mom, don't!" Dylan yelled, but it was too late. As she lifted one of the scrolls, a crowd of wailing voices erupted around them, howling for release, their cries blending into a grotesque symphony of anguish. The shadows shrieked in response, twisting, writhing, and revealing warped faces of the lost souls trapped within. "Please, let us go," Mia pleaded, desperately clutching the scroll. Its edges shimmered with malevolence, the ink curling like snakes. As she opened it, a single phrase burned into her mind: "They crave what is denied." What does that mean? Dylan's voice trembled, catching her attention as the shadows recoiled slightly, as if the words held a power they didn't possess. "I don't know," she shouted back, grappling with the icy fingers of dread that wrapped around her heart. "But we need to break whatever this is." The swirling darkness paused, a brief moment of hesitation, as if considering her words. Then, the chaotic whispers turned into a deafening roar, an uproar of desperation as dozens of unseen hands grasped at them, dragging them back toward the trunk. Her decision snapped into focus. "We need to finish this. Dylan, help me." She thrust her hand into the trunk, pulling out a handful of dusty relics, jewelry, trinkets, and another scroll. Each item felt electrically charged, as if they were conduits to the very souls trapped within. The moment she tossed them toward the shadows, they erupted in a furious roar. The basement walls began to shake, cracks spiderwebbing across the surface. Dust rained down like ominous confetti, and Mia's heart raced. It was working, but at what cost? "Run for the stairs," she screamed, grabbing Dylan's hand again as they weaved through the shadows flailing around them. But as they sprinted, they felt a surge of despair rising, something ancient clawing at them, urging them to stop. "Mom, it's pulling me," Dylan cried, his feet dragging against the ground, heavy with the weight of pain and loss that the shadows thrived on. Just a few more steps. Mia glanced back at the trunk one last time. Shadows churned violently, the last items she tossed were absorbed. And then, a flash of light illuminated the darkness, revealing dozens of faces, each twisted in silent screams. "Keep running," she urged, feeling the shadows pull harder, a grip that threatened to tear them apart as the laughter rumbled in. With one final gulp of courage, she bolted for the door. "We're getting out of here." As they reached the stairs, the door stood ajar, light spilling from above like a lifeline. But as they closed in, that sense of safety began to fade. What had they awakened? Would they truly be free? Or was something far more sinister waiting just beyond the threshold? In that moment of desperate hope, something cold brushed against Mia's cheek, a whisper of truth, dark and malevolent, echoing in her mind. This is only the beginning. What awaited them on the other side? Would they escape the mansion, or would it hold them forever in its grasp, entwined with the souls it had devoured? Dylan stumbled, yanking Mia back as that chilling whisper squeezed tight around her heart. The door, an invitation to freedom, seemed to grow further away, receding into shadows that clawed desperately at their ankles. Panic surged through Mia. They had to escape, but the darkness was relentless. Mom. It's too strong. Dylan's voice trembled as he dug his heels into the floor, the shadows pulling him against his will. Fight it. Her desperation sliced through the air. She felt as if the basement itself was alive, the walls pulsating, breathing, vibrating with the agony of those trapped within. The laughter echoed, a cacophony of dread. Mia tugged harder on Dylan's hand, pushing against the suffocating pull that threatened to devour them whole. The light above flickered, momentarily illuminating the twisted faces that peeked through the encroaching shadows, faces that knew despair all too well. Each one whispered promises that wrapped around her like a noose. Join us, stay forever. No. You're lying. Mia screamed, defiant. She could feel the shadows' claws digging in deeper, but she wouldn't let go. Not now, not ever. As she pulled with all her strength, something sharp cut against her wrist, a shard of despair tearing through her resolve. But the sting only fueled her. She dug her heels in, bracing herself against the dark tide. She could feel the warmth of Dylan's small body mingling with her own, a reminder of everything worth fighting for. Together. She shouted. 1, 2, 3. They lunged forward, thrusting themselves toward the door, the light swirling like a tornado around them, but the shadows screamed louder, a choir of hunger and rage. Just as they burst through the frame, an icy tendril wrapped around Mia's ankle, yanking her back. Mom! Dylan's horrified shout sent a jolt through her. She grasped at the doorframe, her fingers trembling as if hanging on a precipice. Go, Dylan. Get to safety. No. He cried, terror shattering his voice. The shadows were relentless, twisting, pulling, and forming a wall that threatened to seal her fate. But then the scroll in her hand ignited, ablaze with an eerie, brilliant light. The tendrils recoiled, screeching, while the glowing parchment pulsed like a heartbeat. This is what you crave. She yelled, brandishing the scroll at the darkness. You want what is denied. I know your truth. The shadows froze, their grasp softening just enough for Mia to yank her foot free. She hurled the flaming scroll into the darkness. It exploded with a force that threw her back into the light, slamming her against the floor. Dylan scrambled to help her up, wild-eyed and gasping. What did you do? Mia's heart thudded strongly against her chest. I don't know, but it has to be enough. As they stumbled through the doorway, shadows shrieked and thrashed inside the basement. But outside was a sterile silence. They were released from that darkness, laying breached among worlds of light and memory. Yet something was wrong. The air grew tense, vibrating, as if the mansion was alive and angry. Look! Dylan shouted, pointing toward the horizon. A black mist unfurled from the mansion, creeping and swirling as though seeking minds and souls to accompany it. It twisted into form's fingers, faces reaching for them. Mia felt a chill crawl up her spine. It's not over. Just as realization washed over her, the ground beneath them trembled. In the distance, the sound of muffled voices grew louder, an endless tide of lament threads weaving around them, binding their breaths tight. The darkness within the mansion hadn't been vanquished. Instead, it was regrouping, gathering its strength. Mom, what do we do? Dylan's voice quaked, his eyes wide with fear. Genevieve, Mia whispered to herself, the name drifting into memory. The woman who once owned this mansion. She had to know something. But how to face her? What if she was a puppet of the darkness? What if she had succumbed to the very evil they'd escaped? Let us go find her, Mia said, every step pulling her deeper into the unknown. We need answers, Dylan. Answers the shadows don't want us to have. And with that, they plunged into the forest edging the property, feeling the darkness pulse behind them as they entered a world shrouded in whispers. Were they walking into a trap? What truths awaited them beneath the branches that twisted like the shadows they fled? They pushed through thick underbrush, branches clawing at their arms and legs, every snap echoing like a warning. The forest was dense, each tangled root reaching as if to trip them up, to pull them back into the clutches of the mansion. Mia could hear Dylan's frantic breathing beside her, could feel the palpable fear radiating from his small frame. Mom, are we going the right way? His voice trembled, a thin thread of anxiety woven through every word. I don't know, she admitted, glancing over her shoulder. The specters of mist slithered toward them like hungry predators, and she instinctively quickened her pace. But we need to find Genevieve. She's the only one who can help us unravel this. In that moment, dread filled the air, thick as the fog wrapping around them. Her thoughts spiraled. What if Genevieve was just another pawn in a game far bigger than either of them? What if they were stepping deeper into a trap designed to ensnare them? Keep your eyes open, Dylan, she warned, scanning the shadows that danced between the trees. We can't let our guard down. As they moved deeper into the forest, a rustle caught her attention. It wasn't the wind, it was something more sinister, lurking just beyond their field of vision. The whispers grew louder, brushing against her mind like cold fingers. They were no longer just echoes. They were seeking out her fear, preying on her insecurities. She's here, Dylan whispered, eyes wide with apprehension. Before she could respond, a figure stepped from the shadows, silhouetted by the dim light filtering through the canopy. Mia's heart pounded as she squinted, trying to discern who stood before them. It was her Genevieve, but with an aura that seemed darker than the gloom surrounding them. Mia, Genevieve said, her voice resonating like an ancient spell, echoing off the trees. You shouldn't have come here. What have you done? Mia's voice wavered, the words trembling on her lips like fragile leaves. Have you trapped us here? Genevieve's face twisted into a smirk. I opened the door, I showed you what lies within. But some doors can never close once opened. Why are you working with them? Mia's voice cracked. She felt Dylan grip her hand tighter, terror painted across his face. I'm not working with anyone, Genevieve replied, her expression shifting to something darker, more sinister. I'm merely a vessel. We're all vessels, dear Mia. The shadows just choose some over others. A sudden scream echoed through the trees, piercing the atmosphere like a knife. Mia's heart raced, panic setting in. It was a warning, but from whom? Run! She shouted, dragging Dylan toward the darkening path ahead. They sprinted into the underbrush, branches snagging at their clothes, the whispers morphing into frantic lamentations that clawed at their sanity. Each step felt heavier, as though the forest conspired to slow them down. The ground shook beneath them, once more a warning or a promise. Mom! Look out! Dylan shouted just as a mass of writhing shadows surged from the treetops, reaching down like gnarled fingers, hungry for what they had just eluded. Stay close! Mia yelled, pulling Dylan to her side as they veered off the path, heart pounding, breath hot and wild. The walls of darkness pulsed like a heartbeat, pulsing and closing in. It was everywhere. Thick, suffocating, relentless. Something sinister was coming. What do we do? Dylan's voice cracked like ice breaking. I don't know. Mia gasped, pushing onward through the haze, visualizing only escape. That was all that mattered now. But Genevieve's laughter chased them, echoing through the trees like a haunting mantra. As they plunged into a clearing, strands of darkness shimmered across their view, coiling and twisting like smoke yearning for release. In the distance, a figure emerged, a shadow of Genevieve, her eyes glowing with dark satisfaction. Mia turned, her heart pounding in her ears. They were not just running from the shadows. They were being led into them. Mia started, but the sound of his name was swallowed by the void around them. Was this the end? Or just the beginning? What had Genevieve unleashed upon them? The ground beneath them felt like it was alive, pulsating with a menacing energy. Mia could hardly catch her breath as dread coursed through her veins. The darkness was thickening, coiling around them, each shadow seeming to press in closer, whispering deceit into her ear. Mom, I can't. Dylan's voice faltered. Just hold on. She urged, desperation fueling her. They pressed into the clearing, where moonlight bathed the ground in an eerie glow. The shadows retreated momentarily, as if wary of the silvery light. Mia squinted, scanning for any sign of safety, knowing they could not stay still. Look! Dylan pointed, his voice hoarse. A small stone altar jutted from the ground, its surface covered with strange markings and symbols that glimmered in the pale light. There was a stillness, a strange allure, beckoning them closer. "No, we have to keep moving," Mia insisted, dragging him away from the altar. But as they turned, an overwhelming sense of foreboding washed over her. "Mom." "The shadows," Dylan whispered, his voice quaking as darkness began to pool around the altar, swirling like a storm about to erupt. Mia felt it too, a palpable weight in the air. It was as if the forest held its breath, waiting for something to happen. She grabbed Dylan's arm tightly, but it was too late. Tendrils of shadows snaked out, latching onto the altar and intertwining like serpents, reshaping into a grotesque figure. Mia froze, terror gripping her as she recognized the face materializing from the darkness. It was Genevieve, but twisted, monstrous, a parody of the woman they had briefly encountered. "Did you think you could escape me?" Genevieve sneered, her voice reverberating through the clearing. There were echoes of voices layered beneath her words, taunting and begging. "You've done well to come this far, but you don't understand the power you've uncovered. Go away." Dylan screamed, yanking on Mia's sleeve. "No. We need to fight." Mia yelled back, her instincts screaming for action. But how do you combat something born from pure darkness? Suddenly, an enormous surge of shadows erupted around them, tightening like a noose. Mia could feel it pulling at her, trying to wrap around her legs and drag her into the depths of the night. She resisted, her muscles straining against unseen chains. "Mom!" Dylan wailed, eyes wide with horror. "Stay close!" Mia shouted, fighting through the chaos as she scanned for a way out. But the forest had changed, twisting paths diverged and merged, disorienting her completely. Nothing looked familiar, the air thickened with screams, unearthly yells of those who had come before. Each sound a reminder of their doom if they didn't escape. Gripping Dylan's hand tighter, Mia turned, propelled forward by instinct. They ran, deeper into the shadows, direction lost but purpose undeterred. "Where is she?" Dylan gasped. "I don't know." Mia replied, the certainty draining from her voice. Each footfall felt like stepping into a trap, the air thick with fear. Then they stumbled upon another clearing. This one was different, an open space marred by an old, rotting tree standing tall in its center, twisted and gnarled. The tree emanated a sickly energy, its roots creeping like veins across the earth. Dark streaks ran down its bark, whispering tales of despair. Dylan hesitated, his gaze fixed on it. "Maybe we should go back." "No." Mia snapped, focusing on the pulsing horror ahead. Shadows danced at the edge of the clearing, teasing them. "This must hold the answer. We have to understand what we're facing." A piercing scream erupted from the tree, vibrant and full of anguish. The bark shifted, revealing faces twisted in anguish, a macabre gallery of the lost. "What are we doing?" Dylan whimpered, shaking with fear. "We're unveiling it," Mia murmured, approaching the tree despite every instinct telling her to flee. As her fingers brushed against the slick bark, the world around them crashed into chaos. The ground trembled again, shadows swirling furiously, and Genevieve's laughter titillated the air, echoing with dark glee. In that moment, the truth came crashing down. With the force of a tidal wave, imprisoned souls were entwined in the tree, bound by Genevieve's dark magic. Were they too destined to be part of her enthralling collection? Mia looked at Dylan, heart racing. "We need to break that bond." But even as she spoke, she felt eyes watching them. Something was lurking, waiting patiently. They were not alone. What would happen if they could not sever the connection? And what awaited them among the shadows? Mia's fingers trembled against the tree, feeling the pulse of despair throbbing beneath her touch. The souls imprisoned within thrashed violently, their faces morphing between anguish and dread, mouths opening wide in a silent scream. It was a cacophony of suffering, echoing deeply in her heart. "Mom, please. Let us get out of here." Dylan's voice quavered, fear wrapping him like a cold shroud. He tugged at her arm, but she stood frozen, unable to look away from the nightmare unfolding before her. The shadows were alive, swirling faster, and then, as if summoned by her very thoughts, Genevieve emerged once more from the murky dark, her laughter like broken glass. You think you can save them? You're too late. This tree feeds on despair. It needs your pain. What do you want? Mia yelled, the words clawing their way out of her throat. What is this place? Genevieve's grotesque smile widened. This is just the beginning, dear Mia. Here lies the essence of suffering, and the price of your ignorance is far greater than you can imagine. Without warning, vines snaked from the tree, aimed straight for them. Mia's instinct kicked in. Run! She screamed, pulling Dylan with her, but the roots latched onto her ankle, dragging her down. Panic flooded through her like ice water. Mom! Dylan cried as he fought against the tendrils, his small hands futilely trying to pry them loose. Tears shimmered in his eyes as he struggled against the strength of the darkness. The ground shook violently, a deep rumble that felt like the heartbeat of something ancient and malevolent. Mia felt despair creeping in, threatening to overtake her. We have to break the bond. We can't let it take us. With every ounce of will, she reached deep into the abyss of fear within her, summoning every memory of love, connection, and hope. I will not let you have my son. She shouted, feeling a surge of power rise within her. The shadows recoiled slightly, hesitating for just a moment. This was the opening she needed. Dylan, stay with me. We need to focus. She poured her energy into the tree, willing it to release the souls trapped within. Help us. They whispered, their voices intertwining, a haunting chorus rising in harmony with Mia's fervent plea. The ground trembled beneath them, resonating with their unyielding hope, mingling with her fierce determination. Genevieve's expression twisted into fury, her dark form contorting, elongating with malice. No. You belong to me. All of you. She screamed, and with a violent surge, the shadows lunged at them once more, but this time, Mia stood firm. The air crackled and swirled as the light within her became a beacon against the dark. As she screamed, combining her love for Dylan with her anger at the unfairness of their plight, something shifted. A blinding white light burst forth from her heart, enveloping them both, then it all went dark. Mia felt weightless, as though suspended in a void. Distant voices surrounded her, fading in and out like static. Mom? Dylan's voice broke through the murky silence, laced with confusion and fear. Mia, you must awaken, a voice echoed, ghostly yet persistent. And just like that, she found herself standing, disoriented, back in the clearing, only this time, shadows wrapped around her waist like cold chains, pulling her back towards the tree. What the hell happened? She muttered, her heart pounding wildly. Mom, look. Dylan pointed, horrified. Looming before them was the tree, now even darker, its roots writhing wildly, desperate for strength. Faces watched them from within, eyes filled with despair, and at the base of the tree, a shining object glimmered ominously. What is that? Mia's voice trembled, equal parts fear and intrigue. It looks like a key. Dylan breathed in fear. A new dread wrapped around Mia like a vice. What does it unlock? Before she could stop him, Dylan took a step forward, reaching towards the key, drawn by its glow. Mia screamed as shadows surged forward, ready to consume him entirely. What lay at the heart of the darkness? And would they both manage to escape this cursed forest, or would they become the next faces trapped within the tree's trunk? Mia lunged forward, heart racing, as the shadows coiled tighter around Dylan. No! She screamed, darkness closing in like a shroud. Her voice echoed against the ancient trees, but the shadows seemed to relish the sound, spinning faster, their whispers taunting her. Dylan wavered, utterly transfixed by the glowing key. Mom, it's beautiful. His small fingers inched closer, like a moth drawn to a flame, despite the chaos surrounding them. Panic surged through Mia's chest. The key, bright and inviting, masked a sinister truth, one she could almost comprehend but dared not fully grasp. Run, Dylan. Get away from it. Each word felt like a desperate prayer, but deep down, Mia feared it was too late. With sudden strength, she dashed forward, nearly tripping over the gnarled roots that snaked around her legs. She felt them tugging, trying to lure her back towards the tree, but she fought against their grip, her resolve hardening. The tree roared, its bark trembling, and the faces within screamed, their distorted mouths still hidden in the shadows. Mia reached her son just as his fingers grazed the key. Time slowed, stretched into an unbearable eternity, as she yanked him back, feeling the horrifying pulse of the tree beneath her fingertips. "Don't touch it. We can't let it have you." Dylan stumbled back, eyes wide with fear and confusion. "But what if it helps us? What if help? It's a trap." The words escaped her sharpened breath. The very air felt sweet and suffocating, tainted by despair. Genevieve's laughter erupted from the depths, sharp and slicing through the tension like a knife. "Did you really think you could save him?" The witch's voice slithered through the darkness. "This forest thrives on ambition, weaponized hope. Destruction is its art, and you, dear Mia, are merely a brushstroke in its masterpiece." Before Mia could respond, the ground trembled violently beneath them once again. The tree thrashed, vines breaking free from their hold, flailing like serpents seeking fresh prey. Mia's instinct screamed for her to flee, but a part of her couldn't just abandon the tree. Something precious lay hidden within an escape they desperately needed. "Look!" Dylan shouted, his tiny hand shaking as he pointed to the key, still pulsating with an unearthly light. "Mom, it's our chance. It can't be evil." Choking on dread, Mia hesitated. What if it belongs to the spirits? What if unlocking whatever it is binds us to this place forever? No. His voice quivered. What if it can free them? The shadows recoiled briefly as if caught in an unseen riptide. Suddenly, the key shattered into a flurry of light, scattering luminous shards like shattered glass. Time buckled as reality warped around them. Vines shrieked, reeling as the souls trapped within the tree surged forward, darting toward the shards of light. Ethereal wails filled the clearing, growing louder, crushing Mia's chest as her heart raced wildly. In a flash, the glowing shards connected to the faces, drawing them out. The spirits flitted like moths released from a cage, each one illuminating the darkness with haunting clarity. Had she made the right decision? Or had she let the witch trick them into this hell? The chains of shadows clawed at her limbs, trying to drag her to the ground. Mia tightened her grip on Dylan. "We have to break the connection, we need to, Mom." Dylan shrieked, pointing toward the chaos. "Look, the key is forming again." An enormous creaking noise drew Mia's attention. The tree began to shudder, riling up its roots like massive fingers clutching for something precious. The spirits fluctuated between light and dark, colliding with rays of blinding energy. Genevieve's laughter echoed amidst their pleas. "This is your fault. All of it." She screeched, the shadows twirling wildly around, thickening into a storm. "You think you're powerful? You are nothing." As the key materialized in its original form, Mia felt her grip on reality fraying. Each breath felt sharper, slicing through her lungs like glass. The ground quaked beneath her, shadows wrapping tighter around her soul. "Dylan!" she yelled, as the storm surged forward, ready to swallow them whole. "We have to decide. Do we trust it?" But before either of them could speak, the shadow engulfed them. A blinding flash erupted, and Mia realized there was no turning back. What waited deep within the tree? Would it unveil a way out, or was it the true heart of darkness? The darkness rippled, a living thing, swallowing Mia and Dylan whole. A cold wind howled, wrapping around them, twisting through branches with angry whispers. It felt like they were being pulled through a tunnel, their feet barely touching the ground. Clenching her eyes shut, Mia braced for something. Light burst into a desolate clearing, blinding at first, then fading to reveal a twisted tableau. Mia gasped, her breath hitching in her throat. The tree loomed larger here, its bark oozing a thick, black sap that seemed to pulse with life. Faces etched in the wood twisted in agony, their eyes glowing a sickly green. "Mom? Where are we?" Dylan's voice was tiny, lost in the vast emptiness. He clutched her tightly, fear radiating off him in waves. "I don't know," she stammered. "But we need to stay together." The tree creaked ominously as it shifted. Shadows slithered around, whispering secrets only half heard. Mia could feel the weight of countless eyes watching them, fringe figures lurking, waiting. The ground beneath them pulsed, as if the earth itself breathed with a malignant intent. "Look!" Dylan pointed. A glimmering figure emerged from the shadows, a woman, her features pale and ethereal. The air grew thicker. The figure hovered before them, shrouded in a soft light that flickered like a faulty bulb. "Help us!" Mia called, instinctively. "We need to go back." "Help?" The figure echoed, her voice echoing like a distant memory. "What is help when help is the consuming darkness?" The words seeped into Mia's mind like poison. She shook her head, trying to dispel the crawling doubts. "We can't be trapped here. We have to find a way." With a flick of her wrist, the woman gestured towards the tree. "The key, child. Do you really think it opens a door?" She laughed, a sound that scraped against Mia's sanity. "What it unlocks is a curse. You are not the first to come here. Their hopes were devoured, just as you will be if you linger." Mia recoiled, pulling Dylan closer. The shadows danced around them, an audience hungry for their doom. "Dylan, we need to find the exit now." But the woman stepped into the shadows, fading away like mist, her laughter echoing ominously. "Mom! The lights!" Dylan exclaimed, pointing toward the shards scattered across the ground. They shimmered with muted colors, flickering like dying stars. An urge pulled at Mia to touch them to find whatever truth these remnants might hide. "No. We can't." Mia grabbed his arm. "We don't know their power." Yet Dylan was already stepping forward, drawn to the light. "But maybe they can help the spirits." Caught between the shards and the encroaching darkness, Mia's heart raced. She was straddling a line that could tip them into despair or salvation. The laughter swelled again, and in that moment, she realized that the forest thrived on hope. It twisted and warped those pure intentions into terror. A sudden surge of energy erupted from the ground, sending vibrations up Mia's legs. The tree roared, the air thickening with dread, and the faces in its bark shrieked, louder than ever. Roots snaked towards them, greedy and relentless, testing her resolve. "Dylan!" She howled, pulling him back, desperately searching for an escape. "Mom, please." His eyes shone with desperation. "Just a touch, let us see." Tension mounted, coiling tighter. They were running out of time. Shadows loomed larger, echoing Genevieve's taunts. "You'll regret it if you don't submit." Mia gripped Dylan's small hand with a fierce determination. "We won't give in." But the truth clawed at the edges of her mind. The longer they stayed, the less she could trust her instincts. As the tree thrashed violently, they had to decide. Was it time to test their fate, or should they make a run for the depths of the dark forest? Just then, the tree's bark split open, a gaping maw appearing, radiating an alluring glow that beckoned them forward. What lay beyond that shimmering entrance? Salvation or doom? Mia's heart raced with fear and uncertainty as they stood on the brink of the unknown. Could they step into the light, or would it drag them down into the depths forever? Mia stood at the threshold of the shimmering entrance, her heart pounding like a war drum. This was the moment that would define them. Would they step into the unknown, clutching onto hope, or would they be swallowed whole by the darkness? Glancing at Dylan, she saw sheer terror painted across his face, shaking hands pulling at her arm. "Mom, we have to run." His voice trembled, pulling her back into desperation. "No," she said, grounding herself through sheer will. "We've come too far. I want to let them take you." Her voice was steadier now, but a heaviness lingered in her chest. The greenery around them felt alive, the shadows bubbling with anticipation. With a deep breath, Mia stepped forward, dragging Dylan along. It was a leap of faith into the luminous whirlpool, a choice to challenge the malevolence they had encountered. As they crossed into the glow, the air thickened, swirling around them with warmth instead of cold dread. It felt strangely inviting, as if whispering promises of freedom. But beneath that warm facade, the shadows writhed, agitated yet cautious. What felt like moments stretched into an eternity as they plummeted through a kaleidoscope of colors and fleeting faces, swirling around them like a storm. Then, everything fell silent. Mia blinked, and she found herself on soft grass, cool beneath her trembling fingers. The glow faded, and she looked around, blinking in disbelief. They were back in the forest clearing, trees swaying lightly in the breeze, the air filled with birdsong. Light flooded the scene in a golden hue, undisturbed by the horrors they had just escaped. "Mom?" Dylan's voice broke through her reverie, filled with apprehension. He looked to the shadows, but there were none. "Are we safe?" "I think so," she murmured, standing up. Her heart raced, hope flickering in her chest. The ominous energy that had trapped them was gone. "We need to get out of here." Just as they began to move toward the edge of the clearing, the massive tree behind them creaked, its form still towering, yet somehow diminished. But Mia remembered the faces. The spirits had not yet been freed. "Wait." She turned to Dylan, determination burning in her eyes. "We need to save them. They're still trapped inside." He hesitated, glancing nervously at the tree, shadows still flickering at its base. "But how?" Mia squared her shoulders, remembering the vibrant glow of the shards they had once seen. "The key: we need to find a way to unlock whatever curse binds them." They moved closer, feeling a strange connection with the tree, its existence inexplicably different now, more a figure of sorrow than terror. She placed her hand gently against its bark, and immediately felt warmth pulse through her fingers. "Please," she whispered, eyes closed, reaching deep into her heart for every ounce of love and light she could offer. "Let them go." Suddenly, the ground vibrated beneath them, a low hum reverberating through her entire being. She opened her eyes to see tendrils of pure light rising from the earth, spiraling up the trunk. Faces bloomed from the bark, more distinct now, their expressions softer and yearning, as if ready to escape their prison. "Mom!" Dylan shouted, doubt creeping back into his voice. "What's happening?" "It's working," Mia exclaimed, feeling the energy shift. "They're coming." The faces writhed excitedly, their fleshless mouths forming silent screams of gratitude. One by one, they broke free, unraveling from the tree like ribbons of light, mixing with the golden light settling across the clearing. The moment they released the last spirit, a profound stillness enveloped them. Mia and Dylan gasped as a blinding flash erupted from the tree. The growth that had once been menacing now finally split open, revealing a secret soft, radiant petals blooming. "Mom, it's beautiful." Dylan gasped, eyes wide as the light from the tree cascaded down like a waterfall, illuminating the forest with an ethereal glow. The shadows quaked and soothed, retreating far into the corners, losing their hold on everything they had ensnared. Mia knelt, watching the last remnants of darkness dissolve into harmless wisps. Tears streamed down her cheeks as relief washed over her. "We did it, Dylan. We freed them." With each spirit returned to their rightful place, a sense of closure seeped into the air. The mansion, the curse, Genevieve, all seemed to fade into distant memories, raw but irrevocably changed. "Let us go home," she whispered, pulling him into a tight embrace, her heart swelling with the knowledge of their victory. As they made their way through the now tranquil forest, the weight of fear lifted. The mansion loomed in the distance, a shadow of its former self, but its curse had been severed. Mia's determination had forged change in a place long engulfed by sorrow. The voices of the lost could finally rest, their burdens lifted. Exiting the woods, fresh air filled their lungs, and Mia felt like they were emerging from darkness into a new beginning, a chance to start over. Hand in hand, she and Dylan stepped into the sunlight, a promise of brighter days ahead guiding their path. With the last vestiges of dread fading behind them, the world felt full of possibilities. And in that moment, she realized darkness would always lurk, but hope was a flame that could ignite even in the bleakest of times. The end of one cursed journey marked the start of a brighter chapter. Now, if you enjoyed this thrilling ride through Mia and Dylan's struggle against darkness, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't miss the next exclusive stories that are just around the corner. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Let's keep it alive. I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and reactions. What did you think of the ending? And finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. Show your support and let us keep the magic flowing, together.